Hello everyone, welcome to Business School 101. In 2020, Starbucks opened 1,404 new stores, and 1,117 of them were located outside the US. In the same year, Tesla built and expanded its Gigafactories in China and Germany. In early 2021, Samsung announced a plan to invest as much as $17 billion to build a chip plant in the US. Why do these industry giants invest so heavily in foreign countries, even during a global pandemic? What are the impacts of those investments? To better understand the answers to these questions, we need to learn about an important term in the international business field: foreign direct investment. Foreign direct investment, or FDI, is the practice of investing in businesses in foreign countries. In other words, foreign direct investment occurs when a firm invests directly in facilities to produce or market goods or services in a foreign country. For example, if an American multinational firm opens up operations in Vietnam or India, either by opening up its own premises or by partnering with a local firm, then that investment would be considered part of FDI. The reasons that prompt firms to undertake FDI have both inspired and absorbed international business scholars for more than 5 decades. These reasons have been part of various theories and paradigms of international production. Generally, 4 types of motives for FDI can be distinguished. These motives are resource seeking, market seeking, efficiency seeking, and favorable government policy seeking. Number 1. Resource seeking. Resource-seeking firms are motivated to invest abroad to acquire specific resources at a lower cost than could be obtained in their home country. Firms generally seek 3 types of resources. First, physical resources such as rare earth, crude oil, and agricultural products. Second, cheap and diligent unskilled or semi-skilled labor. For example, many clothing companies move their production facilities to Thailand, Vietnam, or Bangladesh for the low-cost labor. Third, technological capacity, management or marketing expertise, and organizational skills. For example, to access the technological and managerial know-how that is available in a vital market, firms may benefit from establishing a presence in a key industrial cluster, such as engineering in Germany and Japan, fashion in Italy, or software in the US and India. Number 2. Market seeking. Market seekers are firms that invest in a particular country or region in order to serve markets in that country or region. For example, many Fortune 500 companies such as Boeing, Samsung, IBM, and Volkswagen invest all over the world because they generate more sales abroad than in their home countries. Apart from market size and expected market growth, there are 4 additional reasons why market-seeking firms may undertake foreign investment. First, if a firm's main suppliers or customers have expanded overseas, then the firm might need to follow them in order to retain its business. For example, when Toyota decides to expand to a foreign market, its domestic suppliers might follow Toyota's move and branch out to that foreign country as well. Second, a firm may need to adapt its product to local tastes and specific market requirements, which can only be achieved through market presence in the form of FDI. For example, realizing that American drivers in particular have a powerful appetite for crossovers and SUVs, BMW created the entire X series in the United States. Third, the production and transaction costs of serving a local market from an adjacent facility may be lower than supplying that market from a distance. Lastly, a firm may consider it necessary to have a physical presence in the leading markets served by its competitors as part of its global strategy. For example, Caterpillar entered Japan in the 1970s to hinder the ability of its major rival, Komatsu, to expand its activities in the US. Number 3. Efficiency seeking. The motivation of efficiency-seeking foreign direct investors is to rationalize their products, distribution, and marketing activities through common governance of and synergy building among geographically dispersed operations. Such rationalization essentially stems from 2 sources: the advantages of differences in the cost of factor endowments between countries, and the economies of scale and scope. For example, to reduce sourcing and production costs by accessing inexpensive labor and other cheap inputs to the production process, many multinational corporations, or MNCs, build manufacturing facilities in China, Mexico, Eastern Europe, and India. Number 4. Favorable government policy seeking. Many firms invest overseas to take advantage of foreign governments' favorable policies. In addition to restricting imports, some governments may offer subsidies, low-interest loans, and tax concessions to foreign firms to encourage them to invest locally. These favorable policies and governmental endorsements might facilitate a firm's global expansion. For example, in the 1990s, Kentucky offered Toyota an incentive package worth $147 million to persuade it to build its U.S. automobile assembly plants there. The package included tax breaks, new state spending on infrastructure, and low-interest loans. FDI has both benefits and costs to the host country. Some key benefits of foreign direct investment include the following. First, increased employment. The creation of jobs is the most obvious advantage of FDI. It is also one of the most important reasons why a nation, especially a developing one, aims to attract FDI. Increased FDI boosts the manufacturing and services sectors of the host country, which creates jobs and helps reduce unemployment. Second, human resource development. Human capital refers to the knowledge and competence of a workforce. Skills that are acquired and improved upon through foreign companies' training could boost the education and human capital quotient in the host country. Once developed, human capital is mobile. In other words, those skilled and experienced workers can then train human resources in other local companies, thereby creating a ripple effect. Third, provision of finance and technology. Host countries can get access to the latest financing tools, technologies, and operational practices from inward foreign direct investment. Over time, the introduction of newer enhanced technologies and processes results in their diffusion into the local economy. Consequently, the efficiency of the industry is improved. Fourth, an increase in exports. It is important to understand that not all goods produced through FDI are intended for domestic consumption. Many of those products have global markets. For example, BMW's South Carolina plant exported around 200,000 SUVs during 2020, with a value of more than $8 billion to China, Germany, South Korea, Canada, Russia, and many other countries. As a result, the United States export sales increased. Fifth, the creation of a competitive market. FDI helps create a competitive environment in addition to breaking domestic monopolies in host countries. A healthy competitive environment pushes firms to continuously enhance their processes and product offerings, thereby fostering innovation. Consumers in the host countries also gain access to a wider range of competitively priced products. Sixth, stimulation of economic development. This is another important advantage of foreign direct investment. FDI is a source of external capital and higher revenues for countries. When a factory is constructed, at least some local labor, materials, and equipment are utilized. Once the construction is complete, the factory will then hire some local employees and make further use of local materials and services. The people who are employed by such factories thus have more money to spend. These factories will also create additional tax revenue for the government that can be infused into creating and improving physical and financial infrastructure. Despite all of these benefits, FDI also has a few drawbacks. First, it can replace local businesses. The entry of large foreign giants into delicate domestic markets can mean bad news for local small businesses because they are put at risk for displacement and bankruptcy. Second, foreign direct investment does not always guarantee benefits for the recipient countries. FDI enables foreign MNCs to obtain ownership of raw materials and goods with little evidence of capital being redistributed throughout the domestic economy. Third, it can encourage political corruption. In order to seize the foreign market, FDIs have gone to the extent of corrupting high officials and political bosses in various countries. In certain countries, FDIs influence the political setup for personal gain. For example, most of the Latin American countries have experienced problems like drug trafficking and money laundering. Fourth, it can contribute to pollution. Because some developing countries might lessen their environmental regulations to attract MNCs, foreign direct investments can contribute to pollution problems in that host country. Fifth, it can promote cultural erosion. In all countries where FDIs have made inroads, there has been a cultural shock experienced by the local people because they must adopt a culture that is unfamiliar to them. As a result, the domestic culture either disappears or suffers a setback. This is felt by both families and the community as a whole. In other words, it causes erosion in the value systems of the people. Now, let's discuss three major political ideologies behind FDI. Historically, political ideologies regarding FDI have ranged from a dogmatic, radical stance that is hostile to all FDIs at one extreme, to an adherence to the non-interventionist principle of free market economics at the other end. Between these two extremes is an approach that's called pragmatic nationalism. Let's learn about each of these approaches individually. The roots of the radical view can be traced back to Marxist political and economic theories. They argue that the multinational corporation is an instrument of imperialist domination as well as a tool for exploiting host countries to the exclusive benefit of their capitalist or imperialist home countries. This is to say that they believe multinational corporations extract profits from the host country and take them to their home country while giving nothing of value to the host country in exchange. As you can probably tell, the underlying logic of the radical view is very similar to the reasoning behind mercantilism. They both consider international trade a zero-sum game. By the early 1990s, the radical ideology was in retreat almost everywhere in the world due to rapid globalization and economy growth. The free market view originated from classical economics and the international trade theories of Adam Smith and David Ricardo. The perspective argues that international production should be distributed among countries according to the theory of comparative advantage. Companies should specialize in the production of the goods and services that they can produce most efficiently. Typically, the free market view is embraced by advanced economies and developed countries because those countries usually obtain the competitive advantage in the global market. By following the free market ideology, their companies acquire legitimacy to compete in and gain profit from foreign countries. In reality, many countries have adopted neither a radical nor a free market policy toward FDI. Instead, they practice an approach that can best be described as pragmatic nationalism. The pragmatic nationalism view regarding FDI has both advantages and disadvantages. Countries that adopt a pragmatic stance tend to pursue policies that are designed to maximize the national benefits and minimize the national costs. According to this position, FDI should only be allowed if the benefits outweigh the costs. Let me explain. Japan is a former example of pragmatic nationalism. Until the 1980s, Japan's policy was probably one of the most restrictive among countries adopting the pragmatic nationalist stance. This was due to Japan's perception that direct entry of foreign firms, especially American ones, with ample managerial resources into the Japanese market could hamper the development and growth of its own industry and technology. This belief led the Japanese government to block the majority of applications for investing in their country. However, there were always exceptions to this rule. Firms that possessed important technology were often permitted to engage in FDI if they agreed to either license their technology to a Japanese firm or enter into a joint venture with a Japanese enterprise. For example, IBM and Texas Instruments were able to set up wholly owned subsidiaries in Japan by participating in this negotiation. From the viewpoint of the Japanese government, the benefits of FDI in such cases outweighed the perceived costs. In addition to Japan, most countries in all of the major economies in the world, such as China, India, and the US, have now adopted pragmatic nationalism to some extent. Now, let's do a quick review of today's topic. In this video, we discussed the definition of foreign direct investment as well as 4 major motives for multinational corporations to invest overseas. Additionally, we covered the major benefits and costs of foreign direct investments to the host countries. Lastly, we introduced 3 major political ideologies behind FDI. So, what do you think about foreign direct investment? Do you believe that the overall benefits of FDI outweigh the costs? Please leave your thoughts in a comment below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.